This is the video to go over the homework from Unit 2, Class 5 on derivatives of trig functions. So the first problem is asking you to find the tangent line of the equation x cubed plus cosine of x at x equals 0. So I know that I'm going to need the y coordinate of this at that point. So I'm going to find that now. I plug in 0, and cosine of 0 is 1. And then so I get y equals 1. So now I know my point that I'm looking at is 0, 1. Now I also need my slope, which I'm going to find my derivative first. So y prime, to get the derivative of x cubed, I'm going to use my power rule, 3x squared. And then the derivative of cosine is negative sine of x. So now I'm going to plug in my x coordinate of 0 to get the slope of the tangent line at that point. So I get 3 times 0 squared minus sine of 0. Remember, sine of 0 is 0, so that means my slope is 0. So I'm going to use my point slope form. Minus x1. And remember, my x1 and y1 are just these 2 points. And then this value that I just got by plugging my x coordinate into my derivative is my slope. So I get 0 as my slope, x minus 0, and y minus 1. Okay, so I could write this as the line y equals 1, but I'm just going to leave it in this form. That's completely fine. So now I'm going to look at my next question. My next question is just asking me to find the derivative, but it is a quotient, so I'm going to have to use my quotient rule in combination with the derivatives of my trig functions. So I'm going to say this is my f and my g, just to break it up. And don't get confused with the y. Remember, this function is r of y, so y is actually my independent variable. It's like my x. So f is 3 cosine of y minus 4. So my derivative is, the derivative of cosine is negative sine. The 3 is just a coefficient in front that goes along for the ride, so it's negative 3 sine of y. The derivative of negative 4 is just 0. And then I have sine of y. The derivative of sine is cosine. So g prime is cosine of y. Now I'm going to use my quotient rule. So r prime of y is going to be g squared, and on the top g f prime minus g prime f. So g is sine of y, f prime is negative 3 sine of y, minus, and now I'm going to have g prime, which is cosine of y, times f, which is 3 cosine of y minus 4, all over sine of y squared. Okay. Now remember, if this is an open-ended question, I could just leave it like this, no problem. Okay. If it is a multiple choice, though, they most likely will simplify it. So if you get to a multiple choice question and you say none of the answer choices look like this, then most likely you have to simplify. Okay, so let's do that just to get that practice. So I have negative 3 sine squared, sine times sine is sine squared of y, minus 3 cosine squared of y. Remember, that minus cosine is going to distribute to the negative 4, so I'm going to get plus 4 cosine of y, all over sine squared of y. Now if you look, hopefully, it doesn't look exactly like what you know, but sine squared and cosine squared should be a nice red blinking light that something is important here. So I'm going to take out a negative 3 just for my two terms, my first two terms, and you end up getting the identity sine squared plus cosine squared, which we know is 1. So now I can say this is negative 3 plus 4 cosine of y over sine squared. Okay. Now again, this isn't, you could have left it like this if it was open-ended. That is no problem. But you need to be comfortable simplifying if it's a multiple choice and you're not seeing your answer there.